Good afternoon, Internet and Facebook land. I am coming to you live from this brick wall. Sorry, I should have come live probably an hour ago, but things happen, What can I say? So, I put a poll out again earlier, I guess it was yesterday, asking kind of in the next step in the automation progression of what people wanted to see next, and I gave people several options, and the one that most everyone seemed to kind of agree on was they wanted to know about best practices to get started in automation. So I'm taking that to mean, what do you want to do, why do you get started, etc. So I've kind of come up with and if I look over here, I'm looking at my notes. I've come up with what I believe to be the 6 top steps for this process, and I'm going to just talk about them one at a time. So number 1, this is the first question I want you to ask yourself when you think about what problem will your automation solve? Meaning, when you think of automation, what is it that automation can do for you that you can't, that you don't think you can live without? Is it going to make your follow-up go faster? Is it going to make you be able to communicate with your clients better? Is it going to help communicate with your leads better? I mean, those are just 3 things I pulled out of the air. It could legitimately be anything. But that's the first question. And then if you can come up with an answer of, okay, if I put automation into place, it will solve X. Then in that case, fantastic. Now you kind of know what you're working towards, where you're going from here. So option number 2 is, once you have figured out that your automation is going to solve X problem, you've now decided potentially why you need automation because you know it's going to solve X problem. Then what platform are you going to use to solve your problem? And there are a dozen automation platforms out there. I mean, I use ActiveCampaign. That's the one that I like and use. There's Infusionsoft, there's Ontraport, there's Drip. Sumo has a product. I don't know. Those are the biggest ones I know off the top of my head. There are more. There's probably, I'm guessing there's maybe 10, 12, 14 different automation. I mean, even Pipedrive, which is technically just a CRM, Pipedrive even has automations now. And with a lot of things, even with just like MailChimp, which I do not recommend, it's not necessarily that it's bad, but it's just, it doesn't work very well. Even MailChimp now, with use of Zapier, can do some automation. So just keeping that in mind. Figuring out what platform you're going to use and how that platform will help you solve your problem. Because of all of those platforms I've mentioned, they all do certain things well and they all do some things not well. And some of them are for particular industries and some of them are not. So the thing to keep in mind is that when you're researching CRM products and you're researching, what problems your automation is going to solve, you need to make sure that the product you've chosen best suits your needs. What does that platform do that you like versus maybe other platforms? And obviously, cost is going to be a concern in that as well. For most people, the cost monthly for most of these automation platforms is between $30 and $80 to $100 a month. I mean, and if you're going to do hundreds of automations and hundreds of contacts a month communicated, that's not a huge amount of money. Okay, so now that we've come up with what problems we're solving, we've decided why we need automation, and we have picked a platform. Again, I'm looking at my notes over here. We're moving on to step number 3. And step number 3 is what processes do you currently have in place, and how are those going to integrate with your automation plan? So meaning, now that you know what automation it's going to do for you, I'm going to move this out of the way there. What you know what automation is going to solve, and then you come up with, you believe what the platform you're going to use. In that combination, how can you integrate those 2 things into processes that you already have? And then as you're thinking through those processes, what is it that in that process is going to be automated? So if it's a customer follow-up program, there are some things in a customer follow-up program that cannot ever be automated. Like sometimes you're going to have to pick up the phone and, I'm going to have to dial customer X and say, hey, Mr. Customer X, do you want to buy my widgets? Like, you can't automate that. I mean, you can do a ringless voicemail to them, which can be automated, but that still doesn't talk to them and answer their questions. So in your process, whatever it is, you have to determine what can be automated and then how that will integrate into the plans that you've come up with and the problems you need solving. And this is probably a topic that we could probably spend an hour talking about if we really wanted to. I'm not doing that today. So just keep that in mind. If you have questions about that particular process, let me know. Okay, number 4. So we've know what problems we're solving. We know what platform we're using. We've decided on how our current processes are going to work into our automation. Number 4, who is going to do the work? I mean, because a lot of people think, oh, I'll just do automation, and it just is like going to happen and it's magic. Like, it's not magic. Like, it's just like anything else. Somebody's going to have to sit down and do the work and make the things fit together and understand how all the pieces talk. And I'm doing this because honestly, a lot of the time that's how it feels. Somebody has to do that. So is that person going to be you? Do you have the time to sit down and do it? That's what my company, Thorium Infolytics, that's what we do, is people who want automation but don't necessarily have the time, we actually sit down and do the automating. We take your process, we help you solve your problems, and then we do the actual physical automating parts. So if you have the time, great. If you have the knowledge, fantastic. You can do it. It can take as many as 10 or 12 hours to automate one process, especially if you're creating it from scratch and you don't have any experience. It may take you 2 or 3 times that long. So what I'm telling you is just think that through of who's going to do it. Do you have a staff person that is particularly technologically adept that can handle it? Keep that in mind. That was El Numero 4. There was 3, sorry. Number 5, what is the timeline for the automation? So now that we know the problem we're going to solve, what platform we're using, what processes we are going to automate and how they integrate, we know who's going to do it, how quickly do we need it done? And that goes partially back to number 4. If you as the business owner or, business manager or whatever are going to do it, do you have time to do it during the day? Is this something that needs to be done this week? Is it something that needs to be done this month? Is this an immediate need versus a secondary need or a tertiary need? So, and then how quickly can you get it done? How quickly can it be done? That's all questions you need to ask yourself and be realistic. All right, number 6 and the final option in our best practices for automation. When I put it there, you can't see my mouth. How do you want this automation to affect your end user? So once you've worked your way all the way through all that process, ultimately the reason you're automating this is you want to communicate better with your, clients, prospects, leads, and maybe you want to interact better with your referral partners. Whatever it is, you need to consider what is it that your end user is going to see. What's that process look like? How is this going to be helpful to them? Where is this going to fit along in maybe their automation process? So keep that in mind, especially when you're working on steps 1 through 5. How do you want this automation to affect the end user? And for the purposes of this our conversation, I'll put all 6 of them up here. So hopefully it'll all fit on the screen before I sign off. All right, 3. I don't know if we're going to do it or not. 4. I think I can. I think I got this. All right. So just to review, number 1, what problems will automation solve? Number 2, what platform are you going to use to solve your problems? What process do you have in place now? How does it integrate with the automation plans? Who is going to do the automation? What is the timeline for the automation? And then how do you want this automation to affect your end users? So I hope that gives you some best practices on how to get started. If you have other questions, hit me up, shoot me an email, message me, whatever. So best of luck in your automating, and we'll see you next week.